All right, welcome back, everyone. So if you've been keeping an eye on the markets this week, then, we're going to dive into some of the really key highlights. And especially, I think there's some interesting things going on, particularly with tech and even gold.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been a week of, kind of mixed signals in the market, which, kind of makes it all the more interesting, I think, to kind of analyze and unpack.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we saw the Dow Jones, dip just a little bit this week.
Mm.
But then, on the other hand, you've got the Nasdaq,
Yeah.
which kind of just kept climbing.
Right, right.
I mean, it really kind of illustrates, I think, the uncertainty that's kind of out there in the market right now.
Yeah, I think that post-election rally that we saw, it seems like maybe it's losing a little bit of steam, but it doesn't seem like investors are, panicking or anything. It seems like they're being, a bit more, I guess, strategic about where they're putting their money.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a lot of uncertainty.
So tech really kind of stole the show this week, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Broadcom exceeding $1 trillion market cap. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
After a 24% stock surge. I mean, what is fueling, I mean, what's behind that kind of, incredible jump?
Well, I think, a huge factor in all this is their AI chips, right? Their custom AI chips. It seems like they're really betting big on the future demand, for AI. And investors seem to be buying into that vision. This isn't just a win for Broadcom. This is something that's pushing, the entire semiconductor sector upward.
I mean, it really makes you kind of wonder, though, right? Like, how sustainable is this kind of surge?
Right.
Are we looking at like a bubble? I mean, especially when you look at other chip makers out there, like NVIDIA, for example, saw a dip this week. So, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I think that's the $1 million question, right? How sustainable is this? And I think, a lot of Broadcom's success is tied to, this broader like AI narrative.
Right.
If AI really does kind of revolutionize industries the way that a lot of people are predicting, then, their chips are going to be in very, very high demand. But, if that adoption of AI is a bit slower than people anticipate, or, if a competitor emerges, well, then, obviously the picture starts to change dramatically.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, in speaking of big milestones, I mean, the Nasdaq hitting that 20,000 point, I mean, that feels significant, even if it is just a number.
It is. It is. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it does kind of reflect, the overall optimism surrounding tech, We've got strong earnings, inflation seems to be holding steady, and then, there's that anticipation of an interest rate cut from the Fed. And all those things are contributing to that optimism. But, like we saw with NVIDIA, not all tech companies are, benefiting equally from this.
It was like investors are kind of carefully picking, like winners and losers,
Yeah.
even within the tech sector itself.
Right, right. Exactly.
And then you've got, the rising U.S. Treasury yields kind of adding another like layer of complexity to this whole picture.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because, I mean, when those yields go up, that means that things like fixed income investments like bonds become, more attractive.
Right.
Especially compared to certain stocks. It's that classic, push and pull kind of dynamic.
Yeah. Especially for those value stocks that maybe aren't growing quite as rapidly as some of those high-flying tech names.
Exactly. Exactly.
But speaking of kind of defying expectations, I mean, luxury retailer RH had a really surprising week.
They did, yeah.
I mean, a nearly 17% stock jump after some strong third quarter earnings. I mean, it seems like people are still out there spending, even if they are being maybe a little bit more selective about where they're putting their money.
Yeah, I mean, I think RH's performance really kind of speaks to, the resilience of a specific consumer segment.
Right.
Despite those worries that we're hearing about, a potential economic slowdown, it seems like, those higher end consumers are, they're kind of weathering the storm, fairly well.
Yeah.
And it suggests, that luxury spending might be somewhat, insulated, at least for now.
Yeah. It really highlights just how differently, different sectors react to these, kind of larger economic trends.
Right, right. Exactly.
And then there's gold. I mean,
Yeah.
gold always seems to have like a mind of its own.
It does. It does.
It surged past $2,700 an ounce after the U.S. CPI data release. I mean, what's driving that?
Well, gold's price It's incredibly sensitive to inflation.
Okay.
So, anytime those inflation fears start to rise, you see investors, flocking to gold because they see it as this safe haven asset. They view it as a way to kind of preserve their purchasing power, when the value of currency is eroding.
So it's less about, gold itself kind of going up in value and more about, the dollar potentially losing value.
Exactly. If you think about it historically, gold has really held its value over, centuries. And during those periods of high inflation, its purchasing power tends to remain, relatively stable.
Right.
While, currencies can, fluctuate pretty wildly.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a hedge against uncertainty. It's almost like an insurance policy in a way.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. And I think, the recent CPI data, while it wasn't, alarming or anything, it did just enough to kind of stoke those inflation concerns and send investors, kind of running toward gold.
Right.
It's a classic example of, how market psychology can really drive price movements.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to consider this week, right? You've got tech's kind of power play, the impact of those bond yields, luxury holding strong, and gold reacting to, kind of those whispers of the inflation. What a week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it really, just underscores the fact that the financial landscape is just constantly shifting.
Yeah.
We saw the strength of certain sectors, like tech, but then we also saw that interplay between, bonds and stocks.
Right.
And, of course, there's that enduring appeal of gold as that safe haven asset.
Yeah, it's all connected, isn't it? I mean, it makes you wonder, given everything that we've kind of talked about, what asset class do you think represents, maybe the most promising opportunity right now? Just some food for thought as you continue to kind of navigate those markets.
Well, that is an excellent question. And I think, the answer, as with most things in investing, is it depends, right? I mean, your individual goals, your risk tolerance, your investment horizon, all of those things really play a role.
Very wise words. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions. And we'll be back next time to help you dive even deeper into this, ever-changing world of finance.
Sounds good.